Hey everybody, it's a pleasure to be here once again. And today I'm very excited because that conversation is going to be focused about agentic systems and large language models and how they can be integrated in a scale to the quantitative industry. So before we'll start to dive deep into the nitty-gritty, I'm very, very happy to introduce today's guest. So, Dennis, it's a pleasure to have you here. We recorded that recording session during hard times in the Middle East. We're both located in the Middle East. I'm located in Tel Aviv. You're located in the UAE, and we both pray for quiet times. And yeah, I'm very, very happy that we had a chance to jump on a call and to do that recording session. That really demonstrate the strength of of the people here. So yeah, how
Yeah,
are you today?
yeah, yeah. Hey, Afik, nice to be here. Yeah, thanks for such an intro. Hello to everyone. Yeah, I think today we'll have a nice conversation where I could share my personal experience within agentic system within like generally quant industry as well. So again, this is just purely my opinion, experience, not a recommendation or some kind of financial advice. So I'll make this quick, short disclaimer, I would say. But again, yeah, it's quickly emerging and fast-paced industry that is now going on. You could see how many and at what speed this vibe coding projects they appear on the internet, on LinkedIn, like as one of the source here. So that means it gives quite a lot of space for even not a professional developers and not a professionals in this industry to get quick entry into it and to make some real tangible, I would say, products. But again, making them more like production type definitely takes time. It's not so simple as just
Will agree.
yeah, just vibe coding for one day or for one evening. Yeah, but really, some guys, and I could see it like from my perspective, they're doing really good things. But for this, again, to do it, you need to have a decent planning. Yeah. So the
Mhm.
planning could take much more time than eventually like realization it in code on, or some kind of an interface. And yeah, I know that guys, some professional guys, they spend months before they even go into some kind of coding, but before they draw all this, some kind of Figma schemes, whatever like applications they use, and only after a decent preparation, they start doing coding. And by the way, in a lot of like systems IDE, like a cursor, yeah, it's like state of art now. Again, it's now cursor and Cloud Code. I'm now starting speaking about some kind of application that I use now. This now are the sort of, I believe, applications where you could quickly enter into this industry and generally into coding as well. And so both of these systems, they have a planning mode, and this is one of the vital things. So basically, each project, each product, regardless of the industry, whether it's trading, quant, or whatever, should be started from planning with some kind of now a widely accepted approach, I would say. So, and this would
Yeah.
help you a lot in going further into the project. Yeah, speaking about LLMs, one of the, let's say, problems and one of the milestones that is not fully solved is a context window. So even now, the LLMs, they have maximum uh, 1 million token window, if I'm not mistaken, like across all different models like GPT, Gemini, whatever, yeah. But at the same time, DeepSeek as well. But at the same time, yeah, like this context problem is not fully solved because tokens could be consumed quite quickly. That's why you should always control it and make some kind of your knowledge synthesis. Yeah. So all that you are doing, it should be somewhere saved, whatever like tools also people use, like Obsidian, Notion, or whatever. Yeah. And LLMs also could quickly track it. And so it's a very decent tool in terms of knowledge collection, storing it, and again, enhancing it, going deeper or broader, whatever the task is used. Yeah.
Mhm. Brilliant.
Yeah.
You have mentioned, the amount of planning that you still need to have with agentic systems and how everything is actually fast evolving nowadays. But I would like to take a step back and speak about like the financial industry and that
Mhm.
integration with agentic systems. Now, obviously, planning is a thing that cannot be skipped from any type of process that you're actually having.
Mhm.
And I would like to ask you pretty, in a pretty simplistic manner, how do you see the integration of agentic systems to the financial industry actually takes place nowadays?
Mhm. Yeah, first of all, yeah, I believe like it's a very like again, as I was telling, fast evolving space. First, yeah, if we also like look at it in a broader picture, so this is just a statistics showing that first of all, like agentic systems, the wide acceptance they got into coding industry. Yeah, so last year it was full about coding, and so if we like consider in terms of revenue generation from we could see the statistics like from Anthropic, that is a cloud developer, yeah, and from GPT. So the vast majority of revenue, like as of last year and definitely like this year, is coming from coding applications. But at the same time, yeah, so this is some kind of, I would say, an indirect review, yeah. But if we look deeper and we hear from what industry guys are telling, that implementation of these agentic systems in terms of coding and in terms of application development, they increased speed something like by threefold. Like for instance, the latest Davos interview of Larry Fink with Anthropic CEO, he just strictly told that the development while using this coding agentic systems, they more than threefold increase the code generation, and not only just plain code, but acceptance generation. And that means as soon as like development speed increases, implementation speed increases, that means that these systems they are providing real value in terms of like uh, advanced knowledge, in terms of advanced analytics, in terms of summarization, in terms of generation of reports or whatever. Yeah. But all the things, yeah, one thing also like before even going into agentic system, you should be very decent with the data. You should be very decent with your knowledge base. And actually the task should be stated very clearly what you would do. So again, one of the approaches, like the industry treats, it's like some kind of copilots or some kind of you may treat each agent as a staff member, for instance, yeah. And whatever stuff you need and whatever hierarchy you want to implement into the system, you may structure it this way. Another way you could also structure it based on the complexity. For instance, some of the applications they involved, for instance, going into database and collecting some kind of information from the database, and then just putting into some kind of interface and whatever. Yeah, that's another thing. That means this is a purely defined process where there is no some kind of hard tasks of reasoning or some kind of very complex analysis. So the complexity actually is also in all agentic system. It's been implemented in something as we call it a router. So for instance, we've got an entry agent that analyzes the complexity of the task, the question of or the prompt, whatever like you treat it, and then so it goes into different like part of the flow. Yeah, now I'm maybe I just switched a bit to another topic, but this I believe also quite an important one. When you construct an agentic system, you need to have this fully defined task, what you will do. Another applications that I saw, and also like I had an experience, let's say like for private equity industry, there are some applications that appear and quite decent one that could provide you with a very, I would say, quite quick analysis of financial statements or whatever. Yeah, because like a lot of companies, if you look at the US, they need to report this SAC financial statements and reports, and quite many applications now are developing into this area, and they allow you to quickly browse and to quickly generate insights from the reports that I believe is also very big value for investment firms, for prop trading companies as well, whatever, like yeah, different industry participants, and they are just doing it on the fly. So you just download some kind of a forms or even put some kind of URL, and they could quickly generate you this very quite insightful information, and it's really like it implements quite decent domain expertise, I would say. It's not just another like text processing or just a simple summary. It's quite a really insightful products. Yeah, the results are quite insightful. So I see quite a great value in terms of this. So for instance, like before, maybe it took, I don't know, several days or weeks for a team of analysts to make this. But nowadays we have these tools, these decent tools. Of course, like the guys, the developers, the founders who've been making it, they didn't make it like in 1 month, I believe. They spent quite a lot of time. Uh, they attracted real experts, not only from IT industry, but definitely from investment industry or some kind of financial analysis industry as well. And they made this like decent products that are now available in the market and is widely used by by these top participants, but by private equity firms, but by sovereign funds. That like I know for sure 100%. And even these companies, they are not a startup level. They are now really like becoming quite big one. Even some of them are being listed on Nasdaq index as well. So that
Mhm.
coming to your question, that all like things confirms the real like implementation and not just some kind of a white coding and plain. I'm not, by the way, like I'm quite positive on white coding, but there is a big like difference between the production type products and straight away white coded POCs. Yeah. So this way, the companies that go through this way and really deliver it into the prod, uh, they are the actual beneficiaries, I would say.
Mhm. Brilliant. Well, I do have a question to you, which will
Mhm,
let cut through the topic
mhm,
that we're discussing right now. Is that
mhm,
you are applying quantitative and machine learning, deep learning techniques for trading and portfolio
mhm,
management, augmented
mhm,
Gen AI agents,
mhm.
which is the thing that I would like to dive deep into. Like, how do you actually apply machine learning and deep learning techniques to portfolio management with Gen AI agents? Well, I would like you to break it down, explain exactly what do you mean, how do you can take like traditional machine learning and integrating with Gen AI agents in order to create, I don't know, portfolio decision making, um, and so on.
Yeah, that's really a great question, Afik. So, yeah, in my understanding, and that's it's very good that you pointed, and you actually in your question also separated these two parts. So, ML and DL, let's say generally, this is one thing. Generative AI, I treat it as another thing. Yeah, in terms of course, they could interact and they need to interact between each other. But again, my experience with ML was more like on the modeling side. So for this, you have a very good and let's say decently defined problem task, what you need to do, like in terms of either some kind of prediction engine or let's say clustering or whatever, yeah, different types, supervised or unsupervised learning. And with this regard, so definitely the first of all you need to have and you need to explore the data sets. So data set and data sources, these are the main, and these are the main for both of these, let's say, streams, tasks, yeah, for both area, for ML and DL. As soon as you got a decent data, yeah, like garbage in, garbage out, yeah, when all this like saying, that means first you have this data set, you have a pretty much defined task of what you need to do. If we speak about MLDL, basically it's called like a target one, and you've got this data set. Let's call it some kind of a raw data. From this raw data, and here at the play comes your domain experience and your practical experience and your, let's say, knowledge, general knowledge of the area you want to tackle. From this raw data, you need to process and make a feature engineering and arrive at with a feature set, yeah, feature space we call it. So basically, when you've got this, you've got a defined target, you've got a feature space. Here you could start modeling. Yeah. Again, modeling is not so a very defined task. Of course, you make a scope of modeling approaches, whatever you go into, like random forest or boosting or deep learning. Here is a like uh, it's a very like deep and I would say broad area of science. Yeah, how you approach it. Some good resources. You may see like Kaggle or Crunch DAO. Yeah, a lot of like competitions, a lot of tracks are being held, and people apply really very non-trivial techniques. Definitely like the leaders, these are very like sophisticated guys in these tasks. Yeah, they've got all these like running pipelines, but first of all, they've got a very great experience and maybe some kind of this intuition, yeah, whether they like make this or another approach, because definitely as soon as this is time limited competitions, you need to have also a decent implementation and decent scoping, I would say, of this problem. Yeah, that part, if we speak about MLDL, yeah, so you've got data set, you've got domain experience, you determine the target that you want to chase. In terms of trading, again, still, uh, it's too much extent depends on which domain you are. For trading, definitely like the prediction is not so good exercise. I would say it's more here the ML technique should allow you to more get insights into the structure, get insights into the, as we call it, a microstructure analysis to determine, let's say, some kind of regimes, because a lot of strategies could be based on regimes. A lot of strategies could be based on volatility. This is also like some part could be a part of the regime stack. But predictions all prediction tasks, they work quite well in some kind of a mature industry like retail or some kind of sales equipments, will some kind of industries that has quite a good, I would say, cyclicality. Again, this is just my understanding, so that you could model this cyclicality, you could determine it or whatever, yeah, trends. And in terms of trading, what I've been applying, there were mostly some kind of clustering algorithm. There was some kind of even just a statistical models like Gauge type of model. This is auto-regression models. And definitely, yeah, some kind of clustering. And also for the last years, I've been engaged into causal analysis. Again, this is some kind of intersection of statistical learning and also machine learning as well. But definitely, yeah, ML and DL allows you to uh, tackle problems with a huge amount of data, with millions and even billions of data. Yeah, that means with these approaches, they are quite effective. Of course, like a lot depends on the development side, also on the hardware you have. But at the same time, new and new approaches appear in terms of processing of data, in terms of more effective processing. Yeah, if we go to the generative AI topic, this is a not so well, let's say, defined problem. But again, one of the feature, by the way, of the AI agents when you're building, it's called guardrails. Yeah, and to my understanding, this is one of the important one, because even though you build these AI agents, you give some kind of let's say, how to say, flexibility for the model to think, and as I call it, to reasoning. Yeah, but again, in my understanding, there is not such thing as real reasoning. Yeah, the model still, it's not some kind of approximation of the brain system or whatever. That means you need to very strictly like define the whole problem when you implement these AI agents, give them particular roles, and basically what is the agent. Yeah, this is one thing that I believe we also need to discuss. It's if I'm a bit maybe I'm oversimplifying, but basically agent is a collection of configs. So one of the config is a system prompt, yeah. And this is, by the way, it's like at the heart of the all agent is a system prompt. And that's actually the knowledge domain. This is expertise domain, and I would say maybe it's 80 to 90% of the value of your agent. If you like look at it in isolation, you're not at the system as a whole, because it's definitely also a value. This is an agent. Yeah, this is a prompt, and what goes into configs, definitely a model type. You could also select it, and some kind of configs in terms of memory tracking, and also in terms of what like freedom you give to the model, to some kind of flexibility for the model, yeah, or just strictly fine tune it. Like for instance, if the task is very simple, for instance, we've got some kind of a prompt, a question, who is the CEO of the company? Yeah, for instance, there is no room for model to think or to reason. It just need to go into the database or whatever data source and to collect this information and strictly deliver it. Yeah, and no chance for the model to, let's say, to make an error. I would say here there is zero tolerance for the error if you've got such a task. Another thing, yeah, so agents is a config. If you have a collection of agents, here again, the space is very like, the domain is very like flexible. There are different types of the structure you could implement. It could be hierarchical structure, it could be linear consecutive structure, whatever. So all of this is very task dependent. It's very domain dependent. And again, here, yeah, definitely you need to be in industry domain. You need to have a decent industry domain expertise, apart from
Mhm.
being like technologically equipped also.
Mhm. I got it. Very interesting. So yeah, an agent is a bunch of configs, but nowadays you have so many applications with different agents, and I would like to dive deep into how you can actually leverage a bunch of configs to implement machine learning research with Gen AI attribution nowadays.
Yeah, again, yeah, also a very good question. Again, it's all depends on the tasks and domain you want to tackle. As I was just telling, you could organize it in a different way. But definitely, yeah, like if we take, for instance, some kind of a task of a planner, it's just maybe like a one agent that could do it, yeah. But the good experience and the like best practice approach tells us that it's better not to overwhelm, let's say, one agent with some kind of a complex task. So the good approach is to break down this task, and if it has like a particular difference, for instance, if you've got some kind of a market regime agent detector, yeah, for instance, you shouldn't overwhelm it, for instance, with some kind of microstructure analysis or some technical analysis. So just to give you like a simple example, yeah, it's better to separate them as soon as the task is quite separable, yeah, and we understand that this agent is doing this, another agent is doing particular task attributable to this like part. So it's better to separate it, and then maybe in some kind of hierarchical structure to have a third agent that will aggregate all this and make some kind of a synthesis and some kind of final decision. Another thing that is being implemented also in some kind of a complex pipelines, I would say, to have some kind of a baseline agent, for instance, and to have a critics agent, yeah, so that it's not only one agent or one model. And yeah, another thing is also you need to have, it's better to have several models. For instance, one agent is built on GPT, for instance, 5.2 or even 5.4. Yeah, the latest release was just recently. Another agent, for instance, is on Gemini. Why this is an important? Because if, for instance, you will cross-check one part of your flow built on one model with another part that will be critics, but based on this model, the model will be always biased to this. And maybe also I've heard about the concept of LLM as a judge. Here also a good practice. For instance, if you have, for instance, one model running through the whole pipeline, the judge this judge level is done by different models. Like maybe with, for instance, you have a general pipeline run by GPT model, and then as a language judge, you apply Gemini, DeepSeek, or whatever, even Grok or whatever model. And this is a very good practice, and that means you may have a much more objective a picture. Also, I know that in some companies and some big techs, they also use LLM as a judge for labeling, because labeling is also quite a complex task when you need, let's say, to label some kind of a text or to label some kind of regardless of which task. But yeah, in text labeling, I know that guys are quite oftenly using this concept of LLM as a judge when you have three models and they make, for instance, some kind of a text processing, either, for instance, negative, positive, or whatever. Yeah, this is again some simple, let's say, simplified tasks. Again, it's not good to give only to one model to classify this text. Yeah, but when you have three models, then they classify, and let's say by majority voting, for instance, you make a label, and this is way more decent one than just to use one model in this task, I would say.
Mhm.
Yeah. Also, I forgot to mention when you asked me a question about DLML, definitely quite a big area of topics, and now a lot of like top platforms, top terminals like Bloomberg or Refinitiv, they hugely implement it, and they make some kind of a synthesis of news, and basically like it's a text processing. So this is some kind of an NLP task, and definitely such companies like Bloomberg and top ones, they've got their own pre-trained GPT models. And as soon as you have access to such a big amount of valuable data, well, this also tasks make sense. But in news process and whatever, like you should be also very careful. And for trading, especially for crypto, a lot of news are very manipulative. Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Like some, yeah. To my experience, also personally, I was quite skeptical on this, but I know that some guys they base their strategies first on Twitter, like that is now called X. Then they switched from Twitter to Reddit. Then they switched to another one, because this, let's say, correlation between news and some kind of a good movements and prices, definitely what we are chasing, they're changing. Yeah, they are not constant. And if you like look at some, let's say, second tier assets, tokens or coins, whatever we call it, definitely this news try to be also manipulative, especially when there is some kind of a listing planning or whatever is happening. But here you should be very cautious, I would say, not to overwhelm like with the task, but not getting a real substance in terms of returns. Yeah. But yeah, so my understanding here that it's on the level of top companies that have a very decent proprietary data, that have very decent training. These guys, they really could implement this nice and really working applications. Yeah, you need a very decent data, because as I was telling you, yeah, nowadays you see a lot of projects are appearing, but the real projects that bring you some kind of a signals, that bring you something tangible for trade and for actions, I would say, not only for like visualization or whatever. Yeah, this kind of you should like very decently track what actual like information and what actual signals you are getting.
Mhm. Well, it's a very interesting approach.
Mhm.
I would like to get a layer lower than what we have than what we're actually discussing right now, and it's
Mhm.
going to be about quantitative research. Now, obviously, nowadays you can leverage those models to perform state-of-the-art research. But I would like to ask you, as a quantitative researcher, how do you leverage those models to perform with the state-of-the-art research rate that you can eventually go and start implement?
Yeah, thanks for this question. Also, here again, like in my mind, I separate it like as you mentioned, there is a quantitative approaches, quantitative techniques, and on another way, we've got this AI tools, and yeah, basically I treat this AI generative AI agentic system or whatever we call it as a tool. So first of all, when you're performing a task. Let's say we take a task, for instance, of asset allocation. The logic behind it should be put in a very like decent quantitative way. So here, and again, this is my experience, I don't give flexibility for LLM to research it or to do it. So LLM and this types of problem, I would say LLM mostly acts as an orchestrator. Yeah. So for instance, one part collects some kind of data. Another part makes allocation decisions, some kind of pre-processing, analysis, whatever. This is a purely like attributed to quantitative techniques. So no LLM usage here. But LLM would be quite a decent in terms of collection, for instance, of data, transforming it to another layer, and then making some kind of a summary or maybe some kind of visualization also is like more programmed. But at the same time, yeah, as I was mentioning it's more like an orchestrator in a very, very decently defined process. So I don't give to LLM discretion any type of techniques and analysis. And basically, what could be programmed, it should be programmed, and this logic should be fully under control on my end, not at LLM end. That is like basically how I implement it. And pretty much the same goes also like if we speak about trading. So first of all, the logic, it should be programmed. And definitely LLM could help in some kind of exploration, in data searching, for instance, in data collection, in pre-processing. But again, it acts mostly according to my fully, either fully quantitatively programmed or what is implemented is a prompt. Yeah, so prompt strictly tells it what to do, and this allows me also to help with some kind of avoiding or minimizing, I would say, hallucination in terms of model. But what could be helpful in terms of LLM is pre-processing, is some kind of research analysis. So as I put it, this is some kind of a feedback loop, and here is AI is helping me to generate, to synthesize. Of course, everything again, it's happening with human in the loop control, but this acts like a decent engine for analysis and for, as I call it, some kind of a self-improving agent, I would say.
Mhm.
But in order to process it, first you need definitely to collect your own proprietary and internal data. And by the way, this is also one of the big values of all these like projects, of all these engines. As soon as you get the statistics, let's say on trades, or another thing that we also analyze is some kind of a lost opportunities. By that I mean, for instance, if there was some very good movement, let's say in some kind of a price of the asset, but somehow we missed it, either our signal blocked it or some kind of our system logic block entering, for instance, into this position. And then we also make this analysis day by day, like hour by hour analysis, to generate more insights. And even, for instance, at the beginning, definitely like you have much more failures, lower win rate or whatever. But at the same time, while learning, while collecting this data, while decently pre-processing, that is where LLMs and this AI agentic system come into place. But as I just mentioned, we do not allow LLM to take decisions. We do not allow like LLM to make some trading actions. This should be fully predefined in the logic. But in terms of analysis, it's quite a valuable tool. And as soon as your data becomes like data points become more and more like and bigger. And for instance, like last year, I was also engaged into some tasks of on-chain analysis. And with this on-chain analysis, you can just, it can blow your head if you analyze the whole the systems of wallets, whatever. Again, this is like a very good defined task. It's some kind of, I would tell, again, maybe a bit oversimplifying, some kind of a graph search. And for this graph search, and by the way, yeah, knowledge graphs is also one of the sort of approaches. I know that the guys are implementing it. We're also like doing something like this for macro analysis, where you have a pretty much defined causal links. And here, yeah, again, LLM could be very could be of much value in terms of propagating through these graphs, in terms of like unfolding all these links. And that again is a very good defined task, and you could give it to LLM and it could process it quite quickly and efficiently, I would say.
Mhm. I would like to. That's a very it's a very very transparent and non-transparent subject talking about how does quantitative researchers are actually performing quantitative research with models. And I can share a thing that I do right now within my company is that we have developed a real sophisticated market profile algorithm that actually enables us to manipulate L1 data. And
Mm,
we have created and orchestrated the entire mathematical concepts um, uh, like with Gemini and with ChatGPT, and
mhm,
we have battle tested all of those equations, and we have a proven evidence for our mathematical hypothesis right now, which
mhm,
after a long duration of time, like that work took us 5 days, but we knew what we wanted to establish. We knew what we wanted to raise, and eventually, everything happened very, very fast. But everything happened very fast because we knew how to plan and we knew how to leverage those type of technologies that eventually leverage, state-of-the-art result that right now we have. Okay, we have an algorithm that we have created, a proprietary algorithm that belongs to us, that can manipulate L1 data in order to understand exactly where the POC actually is and where the volumes actually existed, liquidity, so we know how to extract all the major information from L1 without even using L2 data. And we have made all the comparisons that we need to have, and that obviously was executed very, very fast because of those language models. Now, I would like to share a few experiences that I have experienced during that research. Is
mhm.
that you have spoken about LLM as like LLM
As
as
a
a
judge, as a judge.
as
Mhm,
a
mhm,
judge. Yeah, correct.
mhm,
So we have worked with a certain LLM, and another LLM was judging the work, and we have manipulated, and we knew how to manipulate like the questions that we need, or the prompts that we need to receive, or the outputs, because we asked the LLM to think critically. So I was forcing myself with the LLM to think critically about how do I want to propose the algorithm, or how I want to design the algorithm to be like. And we have created a differential equation, algebraic differential equation modeling, like
mhm.
something that couldn't be really even able to exist if we wouldn't really think critically. And I really force that critical thinking with LLMs because I think that the only I would not say the only, but one of the most major and mandatory things that you would need to think of when you're actually, battle testing those models. And I would like to ask you, I have my certain experiences. Obviously now, the models are exponentially getting bigger and better. GPT
Mhm.
5.4 just released a few days ago. And I would like to ask you, how would you capture new technologies? How would you, try to leverage those technologies in your day-to-day research? How would you do, the entire process that we have spoken about in order to extract the majority of information and capabilities out of it?
Yeah, that's first of all, it's a really cool thing engine that you were talking about. I believe yeah, I'll spend quite a lot of time in doing this.
I can show it to
Yeah,
you. I can show it to you, but offline.
yeah, 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 yeah. Nice, nice, nice. I would be very keen on looking at it because yeah, I was also like actually now engaging in building also my own like quant, some kind of a quant terminal. So yeah, we could speak about it and share our opinions. Yeah, first thing I just want to say is while we're speaking about these agents, we need to fully understand on which time frame we are working. Yeah, because like if we speak about HFT world, this completely different like thing than, for instance, even mid frequency trading. Yeah, because imagine this engine that trade in microseconds. This is completely different things. Yeah, and you see, like here, you should also decently understand where LLM you could implement it to this process, because definitely first questions that will arise here naturally, yeah, is about latency. So what will be the latency of the model and how you could actually implement it? Because definitely I doubt that each LLM or whatever process could work in milliseconds. Yeah. So that means, first of all, for HFT, you put implementation, execution, agent logic. So as soon as you have it, yeah. In either case, like you move to like intraday or some midterm frequency, yeah, but definitely not in an HFT. One thing
Hmm.
you also mentioned about backtests, definitely like we are also doing backtests, but again, all backtests, in my again understanding, they all overfit. It just depends on what like amount they overfit. And actually, there is quite an interesting and I would say very decent research by one of the top quants, Marcos Lopez de Prado. Yeah, he with cooperation with another guy, they published paper on it's called something like deflated Sharpe ratio, because like Sharpe ratio actually is one of the top metrics that all funds, investment companies, whatever trading companies use. And in this like paper, in this research, he's like showing by numbers, by math logic, how all the tests and backtests overfit. So some kind of remedy for this is to do forward testing. So whatever strategy goes live, you need to do it forward testing. Like first maybe first approach could be paper trading, but even better in crypto and as well, I believe in stock market, you may do it like quite decently. You need to have forward testing with an actual trading. That will give you a real understanding of whether your strategy will work or doesn't work. Another approach that I know that some guys are doing, they make a market simulator, but again, constructing market simulator is a very, very sophisticated thing. So someone with experience should do it. And yeah, as soon as you do this paper trading or backtesting, again, this is some kind of also industry understanding. You should at least divide by 3 your results if you haven't tested on an actual data. About LLMs, yeah, coming to your question, more closely to your question. So what are actually LLMs? Yeah, this is also important thing that we didn't touch. Is the LLMs actually, this is a very, very decently it's a big amount of decently compressed information. And as you were mentioning, so it took, I believe, quite a lot of time and quite hard efforts to really extract information from this. So that you could also observe, like naturally, for instance, if we give, I don't know, to some, let's say, fresh graduate to use LLM and maybe to prompt it, and he will start prompting it about trading, we will see one result. If we give it to some professional trader who understands how the market works, how the mechanics works, the result will be completely different. Again, this is what I saw and what I experienced myself. Yeah, so that means, again, we are coming back to this point that we touched like several times today during our conversation. I believe it's knowledge, and as some of my colleagues also call it, like intelligence. That what comes when like you need to have domain experience to extract this intelligence from the model. So from this compressed or big amount of information and decently compressed, because imagine how many like tokens uh, even in Wikipedia, if we say, but as we know, all recent LLMs they are trained almost all internet data. Yeah, it's I don't know trillions, 100 trillions of information. But at the same time, these LLMs they have billions parameters. That means that it's a very very decently compressed information, and you need to have a domain knowledge to extract it. And again, a lot of things, yeah, again, it's not a problem to construct, again, some kind of AI agentic system. But the more hardest thing, again, to my experience, it's starting when you started testing, yeah, when you started testing, modifying, uh, enhancing it. That is a decent thing. And those projects that go and pass through this fine-tuning stage, and if they arrive at the results, at the expected results, at the decent results. I believe that is a factor of success. Again, different views, how many like attempts, how many time you need to, again, it's all dependent on the task, definitely, and on the problem you try to solve and whatever. And what is even more important, back to your project, is to make it adaptable. Yeah, because if you check L1, definitely the market changes, like everything, like it's a very, very dynamic way. Of course, there are some patterns that repeat that we could basically extrapolate, but at the same time, you never know which part will follow next. Yeah, definitely some kind of cyclicality, some links to economics, to some news, or again, what is happening in the Middle East. Definitely there is a reaction, more or less assessed. But at the same time, if you want to track and to capture this real alpha, you need to be, the system needs to be very adaptable. So using current information, using memory, using some previous patterns, like ideally, yeah, to have these patterns in your memory system, yeah, so that the LLM or whatever approach could some kind of triangulate, yeah, and look at the different pictures and tries. Again, I don't like the word. I'm less through my time, I would say, in the industry, my tolerance for prediction is exponentially decaying, and I'm more keen on understanding market regimes. Yeah, but because prediction is a very hard thing. Maybe in some very, very high frequency domain, you could make some predictions. But again, for trading, it's very like controversial. Again, this is just my point of view. So,
I get
and
it.
yeah, and the most experienced traders, they also, you could make cross-check it. They don't like prediction. They want a decent understanding of the market setup, of the market microstructure, with the help of L1, L2, whatever, like the strategies the guys are trading. Uh, so that's how the real industry works, I believe. But
Mhm.
definitely some quantitative techniques, they also make sense. For instance, if you go into the options market, it's a very complex, and without some quantitative background and understanding how the mechanics work, how all these Greeks are being calculated, how they change in terms of, like, for instance, expiry of the options, because like these Greeks behave uh, completely like in a very different way. I would say, like, for instance, if some kind of option has 1 day to expiry, or 3 days, or even like 30 days. So very different behavior, different, like, yeah, here quantitative like analysis and quantitative background, and also observability. So you actually looked at this data, not only calculated something, yeah, on paper or on your laptop, but really tracked it, really saw what was happening. Like, that gives you a much better edge, and that means you could more decently program and guide your agent, LLM agent, and more decently build your AI system.
Mhm. I get it. So, okay, guys. Um, I would like to say thank you for you, Dennis. It was brilliant. It was a brilliant conversation. Pretty decent. Pretty short. Pretty d down to the point. I think that we have discussed the most critical topics. And yeah, it was a pleasure to have you here, Dennis. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting us. It was my pleasure. And again, maybe just here shortly to summarize it. So first of all, again, this is just my point of view.
Of course.
First comes domain expertise, decent planning, and like here I could also some analogy comes to my mind from coding interviews. Yeah, like in big techs, you have this algorithmic part of coding, and
Hmm.
like the most decent advice, and like you could like explore it in different like also videos or whatever, is first of all, before even doing any type of coding, you should plan. So even in the interview, if you start writing code, it's definitely not a correct approach. And this comes from actually like industry experience and just a common sense. First, you need to plan, and here, like in trading, especially in trading and quant finance industry, you need to have this domain expertise. You need to have this observability. And then only you should start thinking architecturing. these AI agent systems, and that means that will bring you to a much better age of successful completion of the project.
Course, of course. So again, I'm completely with you about like what you have shared today, with the opinion and how you have presented things. So again, I would like to thank you and yeah, it was great to have you here. And thank you guys, and see you in the next time.
See you. Bye bye.